And hello and welcome. My name is Martin, and today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating the first thing that we need for our health and damage system. So to make a health and damage system work, you need to have code that basically says that the character can take damage, and that damage can be applied as a numeric value to a percentage or to a chart. And then the other thing we also need to do is create some type of a display for the player to be able to see the health bar going down. So we'll need to set up a what's called a heads-up display, which is going to show our bar, what the bar is going to be labeled, and then show us show damage being applied to the character. So it's a way for the player to get information back from the game as opposed to what's actually happening inside of it. Sorry, I'm just trying to move some stuff around here so I get a nice little space for my keyboard. Let's move the mic back a bit. And the coffee cup without spilling it. There we go. Okay, so we have the heads-up display, the applying of the damage to the character, and then the other thing that we will need is a way to apply different levels of damage to each one of the enemy characters, right? So not only does damage need to be dealt to the main character, to the first-person character, but it also has to be damage has to be applied to the enemy characters as far as them being able to deal the damage, right? So enemy characters have to deal, first-person character has to accept or receive damage, and then there needs to be some type of a display to show the player what's going on inside the game, right? So let's go ahead and get this started. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is head up or create the heads up display. So let's go to our first person character. So we're going to go here to first person BP, double click on that. This is in your contents folder, of course. Then we're going to go to blueprints. Now here we already see that we have a heads up display. That heads up display is actually for the cursor. For the little, so when we play the game, we see that little cross that shows up. That's actually this heads up display right here for the first person that draws crosshairs, and it actually says this heads up blueprint draws a crosshair on the screen. So I believe that's actually being done. I'm not sure if it's in the first. Yeah, I guess it's with the first person player because it's attached here. We'll have to go see where it's actually attached in when we play. From there, what we're actually going to do is create our own, right? So what we want to do is we're going to right click. We are going to go down here to the bottom. So again, this is right clicking in just in the space down here in our contents folder next to our first person character. User interface blueprint widget or widget blueprint. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call this health. And that's it, right? So now we have a new widget that is going to be our heads-up display for our health. So let's go ahead and double click on this. And once we do, we'll see that we get a window, and this window represents the screen that the first person is going to be able to see into the world as. A couple of things to note about this. We can grab and drag down, and it will actually snap it to a certain size. So if you want it to be at the 1K resolution, that would be there. And I believe if you keep dragging out, you'll get, I believe if you zoom out, you'll get all the other different sizes, right? So there's a 2K resolution. Let's just go back to our, well, actually this would be 2K resolution. That would be a little bit bigger. Let's just go back to our standard size right now, right? Okay, so basically these will be the edges of the screen and everything within it. Now, just to give you a word of warning, not everybody's screen, the edges of everybody's screen works exactly the same way. Sometimes some computers will have a little bit of extra molding on the side to hold the screen in place. So you may end up losing some of the edge to the screen rounding off or just being cut off or the image not going all the way to the end of the screen. If that's an issue, then normally what we will do in video is we will actually create what's called a margin safe. And if you can imagine an area about like if you went 10% from here in, which would probably be about 2 of these cubes, right? So about 2 of these cubes in, well, depending on how you zoom in. But you know, take about 10% and make sure that nothing is touching the edge. Anyways, so from here, the next thing that we need to do is look over here in the palette, which is usually our content browser, right? So this is where we would bring stuff in and add it to our character, to our enemy characters, right? We saw that with our particle systems and with, you know, lots of different things with our characters. From here, what we're going to see is underneath common, you have an option that's called progress bar. So we're going to go ahead and grab progress bar and place it. Now, two things happen when this comes in. We see like a little bar, plus we get what's called an anchor point. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the bar and I'm going to stretch it out. And I'm going to make it the size that I feel it should be. From there, the next thing I'm going to do is actually grab it and place it in whatever corner I feel is going to be the area that I want this information to be in, right? So depending on where things are going to be on your screen, you might want this to be at the bottom, you might want it to be on the top. Think about different games and where they put their health bar. Again, I'm not placing it directly on the edge. I am placing it with a little bit of a border between it and the edge of the game. Now, from there, the other thing is also the anchor point. The anchor point itself basically says, because all screens may be slightly different sizes, so the game is always going to try to adjust where this shows up, so then that way it's actually, it feels right. It feels, you know, it doesn't get lost outside of the edge or the boundaries of the screen. So if you have the progress selected, you have over here the anchors, and if I'm not mistaken, there it is. So if you click on anchors, it actually gives you a couple of presets as far as how the anchor point may be placed. So if you do something like this, what it does is it spreads to the edges and it counts the edges and then always makes sure that that goes in the middle. If you wanted it to always show up in the middle, so based on whatever the middle of the screen is, this is going to be however off the screen it is from the middle. Now you'll notice that as I float over this, I get these little different places that I can grab. If I click and drag out, I can actually select how much of the screen I want it to count as the center. So earlier when we saw those different points, this is what we were seeing when we saw it when it was all spread out. They just took the flower and pulled it apart, right? So now it's always going to measure 100% of the screen and make sure that this sits inside whatever it reads as the edge of the screen. So this is the preferred, well, this is the way I like to do it. There may be reasons why in other games or for other bars, you might have it in different places. So anyways, so once we have the bar up there, we want to go ahead and name it. So let's do the same thing so that way people know what this bar is. So we will go and grab a text tool. We will grab that, place it on the screen. Let me go ahead and zoom in just so that we can see what I'm actually writing there. And again, if you have this selected, you are going to also have a anchor for this. So you want to make sure that the anchors are the same, so then that way they both show up in the same area. So I'm going to go to anchor points. I'm going to go to this bottom right hand one. I'm going to spread the anchor points across, and that should make these two respond to the screen the same way. So they don't misalign with each other. Anyways, once this is selected, I can scroll down far enough. I can find that there is the information for text. I'll go ahead and type in health, and we'll see now that this is going to be labeled the health bar. And really, that's the only thing that makes it health, is the fact that I'm labeling it health. And then obviously we'll have some kind of, when we get into, I think it's lab 9, we'll apply a win and lose condition, because then we'll be dealing with menu screens. But as far as the health going all the way down, it's just going to be a number and something showing up on the screen. And then we can say once our health bar reaches 0% or less than 0.1%, we're dead. You know, show us this screen and pause the game. And that's how that'll end up working out. So anyways, we have health now. So now what we have is we have the heads up display. We have the word that we need that's going to describe what the bar is. We've set up the bar and we've anchored both of those in place. At this point, let's go ahead and hit compile and save just to save our work. We're actually not done yet. We have to make the bar work correctly, Right now the bar is actually empty. It's not filled. So with the bar selected, we'll go over here to the details panel and we'll scroll down and we see that we get a progress. In the progress, we see that we have the ability to be able to fill in the bar. So 1 being 100%, 0 being the bar is not filled. There are ways to go in and you know, change things like colors and things like that. Like you can change the color of the fill. You can make the box put a different border around the outside of it. I'll let you guys decorate that and figure out how to decorate it on your own. What is important though is we need to make this thing work, right? We need to show the bar and be able to make it go up and down. So I'm going to leave it at 1, so then that way the bar is full. And the next thing that we actually need to do is we need to create what's called a binding. So we need to bind this progress bar to some type of math, obviously something with a percentage, and that can pick up on the fact that something is coming in and removing percentage from the bar. So we're going to click on binding and we're going to create a binding. Now, it looks like we've jumped to this completely other window. We're actually still in the health bar, in the heads up display. All we've actually done is moved over to the graph. So we've gone into the actual blueprint part of the widget as opposed to the graphic part of the widget. Which would be like when we're in our pawns, right? And we have the we can look at what the pawn looks like, and then we can go to the blueprint, right? So same thing, except this doesn't need that middle function window. We just are able to go back and forth between graph and designer. Designer being what we're seeing, we're designing the heads-up display, graph being how it's going to work, the math, the brains behind what's going on. All right, so from here, what I've done is I've actually separated the percentage 0 to the return node. Now, the reason why this is even here is because of the binding, because we set up this. The name of it is right here, get percentage to 0, and we should actually see that somewhere information-wise. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, boop. It would, yeah, it would show up somewhere else, but it's fine for now. We don't need to find it. Maybe I feel like it would be in here somewhere. But anyways, let's go back to graph. We've moved these two apart, and now we need to put a little bit of a math equation here. So basically, what we need to do is we need to figure out what the current health is, and subtract that away from the full health. Right? So current health would be whatever our point system is, and then the full health would be what the bar is at 1. So basically we need to create a percentage of where our health is now versus where our full health would be. Now to do this, we actually need to leave this screen. We actually have to go to our first person player, and we're going to need to create 2 variables, one called current health and the other one called full health. So let's, we're going to leave this open. I'm just going to minimize this. I'm going to go back to my first person character, and here we're going to see underneath variables, and it doesn't matter which one of the screens you're in, whether you're in the viewport or whatever, because we're actually just going to create some variables. So we're going to create the first variable by hitting the plus for variable. This variable is actually going to be called full health. Okay, and it doesn't need to be a Boolean. It actually needs to be a float because we need a number value there. So we're going to use a float, and we're going to go ahead and create the other one, and then we're going to compile them both at the same time. So I'm going to go and create a new variable, and this one is still a float because that was the last one we created. So I can just call this current health. And let me capitalize that so they stay looking the same. Okay. All right. So now that I have current health and full health as variables, I'm going to go ahead and hit compile. Now, once I've compiled, I can actually put numbers here, right? Because this is the variable or the information that we're going to vary. And let me just see here. It just depends on how you're going to build your health system. You know, I'm going to use a simple number just so that we can do math very easily as far as how much damage we're applying, and we're going to be able to see the health bar move down very quickly, so then that way we can see that it's working, right? So I'm going to put 100 for full health, and I'm going to add current health as also as 100. Now, what that does is at the beginning of the game, the current health equals the full health, so the bar would be at full health, right? So 100% of 100 points is the bar being all the way full. So now that both of those are done, I'm going to hit compile and save before I move out of my first person character, and I'm going to go back to the health bar. Now that I'm here, what I'm able to actually do is we're going to have to apply this bar obviously to information that's coming from our first person character. So in order to do this, we need to cast this to the first person character. So I'm going to drag out of the execute of the beginning of the function, and let's type in cast to first person character, and there it is. All right, now from there the character is going to be the get player character, so that way we have the 0 value there and it knows it's going to be the first person player. Get player character, and just make sure that the 0 is there so it reflects back to the first person, to the main player. From there, the next thing that we actually need to do is, because this is connected to the first person player, we can actually drag from here and grab certain variables. So what I'm going to type in is current health, and I want to get an instance of the current health. We're not setting it, we're not applying a number to it, we just want to know what it is right now, right? So we're going to get an instance of current health, and then the next thing that we're going to do, and I really hope I hit record. Oh, good, I did. Okay, let's go back to. All right, and then the other thing that I need to do also is figure out what the full health. So we're going to pull off of this node again, that the as first person character, and we're going to type in full health. And this is the same thing. We're going to get an instance. So now we have the variable current health and we have the variable full health. From here, we need to divide the numbers to be able to get a percent. And this is why I have the current health over the full health, because if you have full health over current health, you're going to get you're not going to get a point something. You're going to get a 1 point something number. So we need to divide the current health from the full health. So it does matter that this is on top and this one's on the bottom, and not in where they physically sit, but in how they're going to attach to the next box. So what we need to do now is we need to divide a float from a float. So I'm going to right click here, and I'm actually just going to hit the divide key or on my number pad, right? So you have the multiply and divide. That's going to go ahead and pull that up, and then we're going to look for float divided by float, because both of these are number of floats. All right, we're going to see that. So 0 divided by 1. So current health divided by the full health. We're going to add that to the return value. And at this point, we are now done with the heads up display. All the pieces that need to be there are there. So we're going to go ahead and hit compile and save. And at the moment, if we were to play this, we would not actually see the heads up display. Even though it's there, we wouldn't actually be able to see it. And the reason why we can't see it is because it's not actually showing up for the first person player. We haven't called it in to be able to be seen by the player. So we actually have to call this in. To do that, we need to go back to the first person player. We're going to go back to the first person player's event graph. So just so that you know where we are, we're here. We've gone back to content, first person BP. We're in the first person character. And here what we're looking for is the event begin play. Now, just from doing it, I know it's probably going to be up here in the top one, but if you couldn't find it, you can actually right click and type it in, event begin play. I guess let's just type in begin play. And if I try to add another instance of it, what it does is it just takes me to the one that's already there. It's like, hey, you can't have more than one of these at a time. So what we're going to do is, since this is already attached to something, we're going to pull that node out and we're going to attach this to a sequence. I cannot type today. Okay, so underneath flow control sequence, this way it still does what it was going to do, but then we can pull this off to be able to create something new. So here what we're going to do is we're going to pull off of the second node. We only need one additional one, so the one that's there is fine. We're going to pull off of the execute of then one, and we're going to type in create, let me see, create widget, right? So create widget is what we're looking for. From there, we're going to see that underneath class, we have the ability to be able to go and select a widget. And since we named ours health, that's the one that we want to show up. So we're actually almost there. Let me grab this whole, well, let's just grab this and move it over a little bit, so I have space. Okay. Well, stay even. Just want this one now. Okay. So we have the create health widget, and we've added the health HUD, or the heads up display there. We don't have to do anything to the owning player because it's already us. From there, we need to promote this to a variable and then add the variable to the viewport. So we're going to click and drag out. We are going to promote this to a variable. We're going to select the variable and come over here and call this health bar ref, so reference, health bar reference. Okay, so then that way we know what that is. And then we are going to add this variable to the viewport. So we're going to click off of here and we're going to type in viewport. Okay, and we see that we already have the variable there, so all we have to do is add viewport health bar reference. Oh, I guess we don't really need that. Hold on. Actually, let's not do it that way. Let's just click off of right here and say add viewport. Or add to viewport. Or just viewport. Try going off of this. There it is. So under user interface, add to viewport. That gives us what we're looking for, and that attaches there. So then that way we have completed the cycle. All right, so basically what we have now is we found the event begin play. We created a sequence off of its execute. We're calling on the widget to be brought into the game. It knows which one to do. It now has this as a variable, which then allows it to be able to be added to the viewport. So once we hit compile and save, at this point we should be able to push play, and when we push play we should be able to see our viewport in the game. And as I move around, you can now see that I do have a bar on the top left hand, or the top right hand side of my, let me get to a wall, there we go. And there you can, well, that's not very clear. I need to pick some better colors. Anyways, there in this, well, blue sky. Let's go there. Now you can't see the words. Okay, so good point here is some contrast and maybe making that a little bit bigger so that people can see what it is. Might be in order. So let's actually go back in, and once we've gone back to this, let me grab that. And it actually doesn't look like this. It actually looks fairly stretched out. We may have a bigger viewport than the area that's provided here. Now, what I was going to say is, at least with the words, they could have been a little bit bigger. They were very difficult to see. So let us go down to appearance. We could change their color, but more than likely what I'd want to do is select a brush stroke. What that's going to do is put a black outline around the outside of it. Come on, let me do it. Yeah, no, all the information for changing it would be up here. So the anchor points, the content itself, the color and opacity. So that's the color. Those are the different fonts that you have. Outline settings. Let's give it a 1. The outline will be black. Let's actually make it 5. You can kind of start to see like a black outline on that. Okay, let's hit compile and save. Let's go back into the game. Let's push play again. And that's much, well, at least the health bar is easier to, well, the word health is much easier to see. The bar looks like it's gotten even more stretched out. So let's go back and fix that. And let me see if I stretch this thing way too far. Let me grab this and, oops, not that, not the anchor points. What I want to grab is, you know what? I'm going to actually change this to the center of the screen. And let's change this thing to the center of the screen. Let's hit compile and save. And let's push play. That's a little better. Okay, stretching it out, pulled it too much. I just moved the anchor points back to the center, and they are still aligned with each other. So fantastic. We now have a bar. We don't know if it's reactive yet because we haven't done that part of it. We haven't been able to apply or take damage yet. So we're going to do that in the next video because this one's already getting to the 20-minute mark. But this is a good place to start. So we have, so what we've done is we created a heads-up display, a widget. We added a progress bar and a word underneath it. In the progress bar, we added a piece of code that is going to look at the health, the current health, and divide that from the full health, which will then give us a percentage on that bar. And then we added the heads-up display to the first-person character as and added it to its viewport. So then that way we actually have it there, and we can see the bar and the word health. In the next video, what we'll do is we'll apply damage to characters, have them be able to apply damage to the first-person character, and then have the first-person character actually accept damage so we can see the bar move down. So that's it for this video, and I hope you learned a lot and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.